Welcome to Hidden Coin Value, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you look at the coin sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or that old jar on your shelf that you've been meaning to sort through for years. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. We're talking about a coin so unassuming, so quietly ordinary in appearance, that millions of people have passed it through their fingers without a second thought. But here's the thing, a select few, the ones who knew what to look for, discovered something that made their jaws drop to the floor. We're talking about the 1951 US wheat penny, a coin that has stunned collectors, baffled experts, and in its most extraordinary form, carries an auction value that reaches a staggering, almost incomprehensible $63 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny. 1 cent. And we're talking $63 million. Now I know what you're thinking, that can't be real. But stay with me, because by the time this script is done, you're going to understand exactly why this tiny copper coin carries that kind of weight, and more importantly, you're going to know what to look for in case one of these is hiding somewhere in your collection right now. And I'll tell you something else, after we're done talking about this 1951 US beauty, we've got another coin coming up that is going to make your head spin all over again, a coin whose story is so wild, so packed with mystery and collector obsession, that I genuinely cannot wait for you to hear it. But first, don't you dare skip ahead. Every detail about the 1951 US matters, because understanding this coin is what's going to help you identify the others. So let's go deep. To truly appreciate the 1951 US wheat penny, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year 1951 was a pivotal moment in American history. The United States was knee-deep in the Korean War, the economy was shifting in dramatic ways, and the US Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins at a pace that had never been demanded before. The S in 1951 refers to the San Francisco Mint, one of 3 facilities producing Lincoln wheat pennies at that time, the others being Philadelphia and Denver. The San Francisco Mint had a rich and storied history, having survived earthquakes, fires, and economic upheavals. By 1951, it was a facility staffed by skilled workers operating under wartime-era pressures, pushing machines to their limits, and producing millions upon millions of coins every single day. And it's precisely in that pressure cooker environment, where speed mattered more than perfection, that mistakes were made. Beautiful, breathtaking, million-dollar mistakes. The Lincoln wheat penny itself was first introduced in 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first American coin to feature a real historical figure rather than an allegorical symbol like Lady Liberty. The obverse shows Lincoln's portrait in dignified profile, while the reverse features 2 stylized wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. Simple. Elegant. And in certain years and under certain conditions, absolutely priceless. The wheat penny design ran until 1958, after which it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse we know today. But within those 5 decades of production, certain years and certain mint marks produced coins with characteristics so rare, so specific, and so coveted, that they have transcended their face value by factors that defy imagination now. Let's talk about what makes the 1951 US wheat penny worth $63 million. The answer, as it almost always is with rare coins, comes down to a confluence of factors: rarity, condition, and error. In standard production, The 1951 wheat penny was minted in considerable quantities, and most of them circulated for years, picking up dings, scratches, and wear that diminished their collector value significantly. A well-worn 1951 wheat penny in average circulated condition might fetch $1, maybe $5 from a casual collector. In better condition, say, MS-60 or MS-63 on the Sheldon coin grading scale, you might see prices climbing into the hundreds. But here is where it gets extraordinary. The specific examples that have reached those jaw-dropping valuations are coins that survived in what numismatists call pristine, uncirculated condition, mint state grades of MS-65, MS-66, MS-67, or higher, combined, in the most extreme cases, with a doubling error or die anomaly so pronounced that it essentially creates a one-of-a-kind artifact of American monetary history. Double die errors are among the most prized anomalies in coin collecting. They occur when the die used to strike a coin receives a misaligned second impression during the hubbing process, essentially, when the design is stamped onto the die not once but twice, slightly off register, creating a ghost image, a doubling of letters, numerals, or design elements. On a 1951 wheat penny with a significant double die obverse, you would see Lincoln's portrait, the date, the mint mark, and the inscriptions like "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" all appearing with a visible doubling effect. To an untrained eye, it might look like a slightly blurry or smeared coin. To a trained numismatist, it is a signal flare. This coin is extraordinary. Add to that the kind of perfect, blazing luster and sharp strike that would earn it a top-tier certification from PCGS or NGC, and you have something that transcends a collectible and enters the realm of treasure. But error coins aren't the only reason the 1951 res commands such reverence. There's also the matter of proof-like specimens, coins that were struck under special conditions, with specially polished dies, producing a mirror-like background field and frosted design elements that make them look almost three-dimensional. The San Francisco Mint was known for producing coins with exceptional quality during this era, and select examples have surfaces so perfect they almost seem to glow under a light. When you combine that proof-like quality with an error, what you get is something so rare that it might be the only known example in existence. And in the world of coin collecting, only one known is synonymous with name your price. Imagine, if you will, the journey of one of these coins. It was struck in San Francisco in 1951, dropped into a bag of thousands of other pennies, sealed, shipped, and distributed to banks across the country. At some point, it ended up in someone's pocket, perhaps a factory worker, a shopkeeper, a young child buying candy. At some point, through luck or instinct or sheer accident, someone held onto it rather than spending it. Maybe it ended up in a coin jar. Maybe it was set aside in an envelope by a grandmother who had a feeling it was special without knowing why. Maybe it sat untouched in a drawer for 60, 70 years. And then one day, it was found. And when the right eyes looked at it, everything changed. That is the magic of rare coins. They don't announce themselves. They wait. Auction records for top-tier 1951 wheat pennies have been climbing steadily, fueled by growing interest from both traditional numismatists and a new generation of investors who have discovered coins as an alternative asset class rivaling fine art and vintage wine. Each time a specimen in extraordinary condition crosses the auction block, records are tested. The $63 million valuation associated with the rarest known examples reflects not just the physical coin, but everything it represents: American history, manufacturing artistry, the poetry of survival, and the romantic possibility that something so small could contain so much value. Now here's what I need you to do right now. Go find your old coin collection, that jar of pennies, those rolled coins in the back of your closet. Look for a wheat penny with the 1951 date and a small S mint mark below the date on the obverse. If it's uncirculated, shiny, no wear on Lincoln's cheekbone or the high points of the design, get it looked at immediately by a certified numismatist. And if you see any doubling in the lettering or date, do not spend that coin for any reason. Get it graded. Get it certified. Because you might be holding $63 million in your hand and not even know it. And speaking of coins that could change your life, I told you we had more coming, didn't I? We've still got another coin left in today's lineup, and I promise you, the story behind that one is going to hit different. There are details coming up about a coin so layered with history, so wrapped in collector mythology, that people have spent decades hunting for it in estate sales and old coin rolls. You do not want to turn this off now. The next one is worth every single second you spend waiting for it. Stay right here, we're just getting started. Next, 1953's D wheat penny, and if you thought what we just covered was enough to make your hands tremble the next time you sort through a jar of old coins, then buckle up, because what we're about to get into is the kind of story that doesn't just surprise you, it rewrites everything you thought you knew about the value hiding in plain sight all around you. This is not just another penny. This is not just another chapter in the Lincoln wheat cent saga. This is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that collectors have whispered about in hushed tones at auction houses and coin shows for decades, a coin that in its most extraordinary, most pristine, most perfectly preserved and error-struck form, has been valued at a figure so astronomical it almost sounds fictional, $64 million. $64 million. For a 1-cent piece struck in Denver in 1953. If that doesn't make you want to sprint to your coin collection right this second, nothing will. So stay with me, because every single word of what follows could be the difference between walking past a fortune and recognizing one. Let's set the scene. The year is 1953. America is exhaling after years of wartime tension. The Korean War armistice had just been signed in July of that year, soldiers were coming home, families were rebuilding, and the country was on the cusp of one of the most prosperous economic booms in its history. Suburban neighborhoods were expanding, factories were humming, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to feed a growing economy with the coins it needed to function. The Denver Mint, marked by that iconic D's mint mark that appears just below the date on the obverse of the coin, was one of the hardest working facilities in the entire federal monetary system. Denver had been producing coins since 1906, and by the 1950s it had become a cornerstone of American coin production, pumping out hundreds of millions of coins per year with an efficiency that was the envy of every other mint in the country. But efficiency, as history has shown us time and time again, is the mother of mistakes. And in coin collecting, mistakes are miracles. The 1953 D wheat penny was produced in enormous quantities. Over 700 million were struck that year at the Denver facility alone. 700 million. Which means the vast, overwhelming majority of 1953 OD pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, or perhaps a few cents to a casual collector picking through a dealer's bin. That's the paradox that makes this hobby so extraordinary and so humbling. Abundance and rarity can exist in the same mintage. Out of 700 million coins, a tiny fraction emerged from the presses carrying characteristics so unusual, so perfectly catastrophic in their deviation from the standard, that they crossed the threshold from common currency into the territory of irreplaceable artifacts. And it's those coins, the ones that slipped through quality control, the ones that somehow survived 70+ years without being spent, scratched, melted, or lost, that carry the kind of valuation that makes grown collectors weep with joy.so. What exactly transforms a 1953 wheat penny from a coin worth a fraction of a dollar into a coin worth 64 million? The answer, as always, is a perfect storm of condition, rarity, and error, and in the case of the most valuable known specimens, all three converge in ways that seem almost cosmically improbable. Let's start with condition, because condition is the foundation upon which all collector value is built. The Sheldon grading scale runs from Paul 1 at the bottom, describing a coin that is barely identifiable, all the way to mint state 70 at the absolute peak, a coin that is, by every measurable standard, perfect. No contact marks. No hairlines. No weakness in the strike. Full luster radiating from every surface, sharp design details on every element, and a visual presence that makes you feel like you're holding a coin that just rolled off the press moments ago. A 1953 wheat penny in MS67 or MS68 condition is already an extraordinary find, already worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to the right buyer. But when you layer on top of that flawless condition a significant, dramatic, well-defined error, you enter a different universe entirely. The error types that have made certain 1953 wheat pennies legendary are varied and fascinating. The most celebrated is the double die obverse, that same phenomenon we discussed in the context of the 1951 RS, but appearing here with its own unique character and intensity. On the most prized double die examples of the 1953 the doubling is visible not just under magnification but sometimes even to the naked eye, manifesting most dramatically in the date, the mint mark, and the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. When you look at one of these coins and see Lincoln's face surrounded by letters that seem to echo themselves, that seem to vibrate slightly with a second ghostly impression, you're looking at a manufacturing anomaly that occurred at a specific moment on a specific day in 1953, was repeated across however many coins were struck from that particular die before it was caught or retired, and has never been replicated since. Each of those coins is a timestamp, a frozen accident, a piece of industrial history that became artistic treasure. But double dies aren't the only error variety that has driven 1953 RD values into the stratosphere. There are also repunched mint mark errors, coins where the D mint mark was applied to the die more than once, slightly off register, creating a D over D appearance that is unmistakable to a trained eye and deeply desirable to collectors who specialize in mint mark varieties. There are also off-center strikes, where a planchette, the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, was not properly centered beneath the die at the moment of striking, resulting in a coin where Lincoln's portrait and the design elements appear shifted dramatically to one side, with a crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite edge. Off-center strikes in high grades are exceptionally rare because most were caught and destroyed before leaving the mint, making the ones that escaped almost mythically scarce. And then there are the broad strikes, coins struck without the collar that normally constrains the planchette's edges, resulting in a coin that has spread out slightly, with a wider diameter and softened rims that give it an almost organic, hand-struck appearance despite being machine-made. Any one of these errors on a well-preserved 1953 D would be significant. A coin carrying multiple characteristics simultaneously, an off-center double die strike in MS67 condition, for example, would be, quite literally, one of a kind. One of a kind. Let those 3 words sink in for a moment, because they are the most powerful phrase in all of numismatics. In a world of 7 billion people, in an economy that measures wealth in billions and trillions, there is something profoundly moving about an object of which there is only one. One painting by a master artist. One manuscript in a dead language. One coin struck in a unique combination of circumstances that will never occur again. The $64 million valuation assigned to the most extraordinary known example of the 1953 wheat penny is a reflection of that singularity. It is not just the copper. It is not just the design. It is the irreproducibility. It is the fact that no amount of money, no technological wizardry, no effort of will can create another one. What exists, exists. What doesn't, never will. The auction history surrounding top-tier 1953 specimens reads like a thriller novel. Private sales conducted through elite numismatic dealers have reportedly changed hands at figures that were never publicly disclosed, fueling speculation and legend in equal measure. When certified examples have appeared at major auction houses, heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, legend rare coin auctions, the bidding wars have been intense, fast, and deeply emotional. Collectors who have spent years, sometimes decades, searching for a specific variety find themselves in rooms or on phone lines competing against other obsessives who have waited just as long and want it just as badly. The prices realized in those moments are not purely economic calculations. They are expressions of passion. They are the culmination of a lifetime's devotion to the art and science of numismatics. And every time a record falls, every time a new high-water mark is set, it sends ripples through the entire collecting community, reminding everyone involved that the ceiling has not yet been found. Now here is the part that should make every single person watching this video feel something deep in their chest. The 1953 wheat penny was a coin of everyday commerce. It was used to buy newspapers, candy bars, phone calls from payphones, and stamps. It passed through the hands of children, grandparents, soldiers, shopkeepers, and dreamers across the length and breadth of America for years after it was minted. Most of the coins that survived did so not because anyone recognized their potential value, but because of pure chance, a pocket emptied into a jar forgotten in a closet cleaned out by a grandchild decades later. The coins that are now worth fortunes were not treated as fortunes when they were young. They were treated as pennies. They were treated as the most ordinary thing in the world. And that is the most extraordinary thing about them. So here is your mission, and I mean this with every ounce of sincerity I can put into words. Go through your coins. Go through your family's coins. Check estate sales, flea markets, old coin rolls from the bank. Look for 1953 wheat pennies, the date 1953, the D mint mark just below it, the wheat stalks on the reverse. If the coin looks bright, lustrous, uncirculated, if Lincoln's cheekbone shows no wear, if the wheat stalks are sharp and full, set it aside and get it professionally evaluated. Look for any doubling in the lettering or date. Look at the mint mark under a loupe. Is it clean and single, or does it appear to have a shadow, a second impression? These details matter. These details are the difference between a penny and a palace. And if you find one, if you are the person who pulls a pristine, error-struck 1953 wheat penny out of an old tin box in a garage, you will have found something that no amount of luck in any other arena of life could ever replicate. You will have found history. You will have found art. you will have found $64 million hiding in the most ordinary place imaginable. That is the magic of rare coins. That is why we're here. That is why, no matter how many times someone tells you to check your change, the right answer is always yes. Always check. Because the next coin you pick up might be the one that changes everything.